Hi, I'm Yo Peeters. I'm the founder of secappdev, and it is my honor today to interview Jim Manico, who's an outstanding teacher on software security, particularly in web applications. And he's been teaching at secappdev for many years now. Hi, Jim. We all know you and we love you as an outstanding teacher of topics such as XSS and Java security. We feel incredibly honored that you come, that you take out a full week to be at secappdev. How long have you been coming to secappdev? This is not the first time, is it?
No, this is not my first time. I believe it's 5 years now. Maybe it's been quite a number of years now I've been to the course.
Okay. And in fact, you even joined the board that organizes the conference. What motivated you to join the board?
Well, let's go back a few steps. Like Ken Van Wyck first invited me to come out here, but why I keep coming back is for two reasons. First of all, I'm just thoroughly impressed by you, Yo. I mean, this is a nonprofit effort. This is a passion of yours that you've been working on for over a decade. This is a very high intellectual take on secure software, and it's very rare to see a course that's dedicated to the topic of building secure software with so much intellectual might behind it. It's a very private course. It's the food is probably the best food on the planet as it comes to conferences, but I joined the board because I believe in the mission. You know, it's a nonprofit dedicated to assisting developers around the world build secure software. And we desperately need more of that. And so I think the intentions behind secappdev and the influence it has in this region is outstanding, and I'm always happy to support that. And let me add one more note. This is not just giving altruistically. I'm not just a teacher at secappdev, but I'm a student as well. This is also where I come to learn about new topics, cryptography, which is not my main area of expertise. So I'm also a student here, is one of the other reasons I've joined the board and participate in this course.
Actually, I'd like to push you into an area that is outside your traditional area of expertise.
Absolutely.
Of web security. And I'd like to talk about an incident that happened on January 13th in Hawaii, where you live. So what were you doing on that day at 8:08 in the morning, and what happened next?
Well, I was awake. I had already completed my first coffee of the day, and I was beginning to cook breakfast for my wife, right? So I was getting ready to start the day, make some eggs and toast for my wife and I. And that's when the alert went off. We got a text message on both of our phones. We were in different rooms. And I remember first getting the text as I was approaching the kitchen. I just stopped, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the message for a moment. And Yo, you know me well. I'm usually fast to talk and act, and even when it's not good to do so. But for that moment, I froze, and it was a existential crisis that's hard to describe. Because the alert, the way I translated the alert was this: nuclear missiles are inbound to your island. This is not a drill. Take cover. And I froze. It made me reflect.
You thought that you were going to die?
Yeah, absolutely. For that first brief minute, and there's nowhere to go, first of all. I live on the island of Kauai in the Hawaiian chain. Kauai. This is a small island with about 50,000, 60,000 people who live on it. There is a large missile defense base on the island, making us a direct nuclear target in the event of global thermonuclear war. And again, there's nowhere to hide. We don't have shelters. This is a small region. So I froze because there was really no action that I could take. That was my first reaction to this event.
Well, I would have thought that Hawaii, being so prone to getting hurricanes and tsunamis and earthquakes, etc., would have shelters. It surprises me that you say that they don't.
In our island, we have shelters for the hurricane. Those are above ground, stone buildings, not
I see, okay.
These are not good places to hide in the event of a nuclear strike. These are not like underground bunkers that are available for the masses. In fact, I'm on Kauai, a small island. Even on Honolulu, which is over 1 million people, a much larger city, and Oahu, which is on Oahu, a much larger island, parents were so unsure of what to do to protect their children. There are many incidences around Honolulu where the sewer system was being opened up, and parents were, I'm being dramatic now, throwing their children down into the sewer system because there's not a significant shelter system around the Hawaiian Islands for this specific kind of risk. And think of it this way. Here's the other thought that I had. Suppose you did go underground. Suppose there was an underground shelter and you were able to survive the initial nuclear strike. What's next? You wait a year in the sewer system, you wait a year in your basement, and then you come back out into your island and see nothing but death and destruction? So it's not just the fact that my wife and I had really nowhere to go to protect ourselves in the event of this kind of war. It was that we knew if it really did happen, it would destroy the island. This is a very lush, tropical, nature-driven island, and that would largely go away. And what kind of life would we have as we surfaced months, years, or even weeks after the event, even if we were still alive and healthy? What's next, Yo? Do you want to live in a world that's a nuclear destroyed wasteland? I don't. And so these are the thoughts going through our head. And so as I'm looking at the initial text frozen, my wife comes over. Do you see this? And I'm like, yes. And then when my wife came over, all of my thoughts are on her. And is she going to be okay? And I got out of my own, immediate worry, and I began worrying about my wife and my neighbors and all the loved ones. And then I began to snap into action, which was to get some alcohol. There's nothing else to do. So we had a drink at like 8:15 in the morning. Salute, because we decided not to do anything. And I began to research and dig deeper and look at the other alert systems of the island, look at military alert systems, look at the different news channels, and look at the different politicians in Hawaii who were on Twitter and social media, what they were saying. And both of our initial existential crisis feelings began to subside, because as every minute went by, it was getting more clear. This was not real. This was just a mistake or a drill of some kind.
I see. Okay. So after how much time roughly do you think that you?
I would say about 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
About 10 minutes into this, we had both begun to realize this is not real.
And do you think that was the general situation for people at large in Hawaii?
Absolutely not. No, I think that's unique to those of us who are researching the internet and who are actively looking at different channels besides just the standard channel we get through text and all of that. Again, parents were throwing their kids into the sewer system, and this is happening more than 10 minutes after the alert. So this still had negative ripple effects across all of Hawaii on an early Saturday morning, across all the islands, beyond just 10 minutes into the event. And even after the 10 minutes, I mean, we're still feeling dread. Yeah, we're still nervous and feeling dread and questioning our entire lives, right? It's like our whole lives are flashing before us, and we're deciding what to do. So my wife and I sat with each other for a moment. I mean, are you okay? I'm okay. We did a nice big hug and kiss. We realized that this is not a major problem, and we immediately began calling all of our friends to help them calm down. Okay. Because I'd found at about this time, now we're about 15 minutes into the event. We began our initial calls to help call friends and call local radio stations, and now the first state politicians began to tweet on social media, "This is just a drill. This is just a drill." And about halfway in, the grassroots efforts to inform everyone that this is not a real issue had begun. And so we try to help with that effort.
So halfway in, what was that? Because what was the timing exactly? So you had 8:08.
8:08.
you had the incoming alert, and then
8:08 a.m.
so 8:20 roughly, you start to think, nah, this is not true. But you didn't get confirmation for a lot.
38 extremely long minutes.
Okay. After the event, there was a lot of talk in the press about how this was due to human error. But how do you see the balance of responsibility? To what extent do you think it was a matter of human error, and to what extent is there a technical failing at the bottom of this?
Well, in software security, right, we talk about people, process, and technology. And when I look at this event, I think we can have a shared responsibility across all three of those tiers of the world of software security. The first wave of information was that the user interface was poor and he made an accidental mistake. And when we looked at the UI screenshots, that looked like a reasonable assessment. So that's one thing. The technology wasn't super great in terms of choosing an alert versus a test alert. But we realized that really actually, later as the news progressed, that really wasn't the key problem. The key problem was that a test message was sent to the main operator. And that message had two embedded messages, right? There was the internal message, which was an actual alert that said this is not a drill. And then that message, that real message was wrapped around a test message that said this is just a test. So as the operator saw this is just a test, this is not a drill, ballistic missile inbound, and the operator chose to fire off the actual alert. So here are the problems I don't like. One person, all it took is one person to click one button and they can instantly send the alert out to the entire world. I would much rather see some kind of approval chain across him and his supervisor that were hopefully able to communicate rather quickly. This has a major negative and expensive effect on Hawaii. Something that can cause this much harm should have more than one button, maybe even a pop-up dialogue, right? Are you sure you want to send a nuclear alert to the entire state of Hawaii? Yes or no? Something that was beyond just a simple button click to activate the alert would have been nice. And two, this is so there's a technology. Yeah, the UI was bad. That's a technology problem. The test alert message was a little iffy. That's a process problem to some degree. The test operator saw a conflicting message, didn't read it carefully enough, or go and at least briefly check, make a call, 60 seconds to check if that message truly was a test or real. That's a part of the operator's responsibility. So I think this responsibility, and I don't want to blame the operator completely, but there is errors across all tiers of this software system.
But that's concerning the sending out of the message. But then it took an awfully long time, 38 minutes, as you said, to send the message that this, in fact, was a false alert.
This system that they had purchased and programmed to some degree did not have a template available to reverse the message out. So they had to basically go back to the administrator, go back and add a new template that had a new message, a new custom message to say that the previous alert was a false alert. So the software system had this capability, but the message wasn't set, and the operator didn't have the privilege to do this themselves. So there's a series of different steps that needed to take before they can reverse this message out. And it would have been nice if they had the foresight to have a preset template that said the previous message was a false alert, please disregard. But they didn't have that ready, though.
Well, I think that we're going to have to wrap up. We've run out of time. So I'd like to thank you very much for sharing that terrible, albeit terrible experience with us. And I hope that we as a community of developers will at least try to solve or prevent the kind of technical problems that contributed to this disastrous event.
Absolutely. Thank you for what you do here at secappdev, and thank you for taking the time to interview me about this incident.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yo.